Hello. Are you getting my voice now? Okay. This animation will clear the concept about the IP address allocation from the service provider. See here in this particular configuration we have these 4 different terminals. These 4 different terminals, out of which the IP address 162.103.1.100, then 162.103.1.101, then 1.102. These 3 IP addresses are allocated. These 3 IP addresses are allocated to the 3 physically addressed devices. That is, the first terminal 1.100 has a MAC address 20:0F65. It's a 48-bit number. It's a 48-bit number, say a Ethernet card, the MAC address of the Ethernet card, where this is the physical address, and we are providing a virtual address 162.103. Out of these 4 terminals, the green terminal is having a MAC address 5F244F8381C5, but this terminal does not have an IP address, and since this terminal does not have an IP address, this terminal cannot communicate with any terminal within the network itself as well as to the external network. But then how the IP address will be allocated? Now here we have a DHCP server, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. This dynamic host configuration protocol provides the IP address to all the terminals, these 4 terminals, with the help of one relay agent. This relay agent is having 2 different IP addresses. The first is 162.103.1.105. That is in the range of all these 4 terminals. Listen very carefully. These terminals, this will be the internal IP address for the DHCP relay agent for this local area network. And suppose this, you can call this as a internet service provider utilizing dynamic host configuration protocol. This protocol is used by any terminal to register itself on the network. Whenever the terminal gets registered itself on the network, it will get an IP address. So it first of all request from the DHCP server. Now see, the green computer wants to register itself on the network. So it sends a request packet to the DHCP server requesting an IP address. Look for this green terminal. The green terminal does not know whether the DHCP server is available or not. So it will first of all send a DHCP discover message by utilizing a UDP protocol at the transport layer at a specified port 546, where it's an application. DHCP discover, it's the program command for the connectivity to the DHCP server. So it's the message DHCP discover with a destination address 255.250. That is all the terminals in the network. So see the worm that is generated from this green terminal. It's sent to 102, 100, 101, at the same time 105 also. This particular network, each network must have a DHCP server or at least a relay agent. Relay agent will communicate the request for the IP address to the DHCP server, or it will act as a middleman. The request received from the green computer is only processed by the DHCP server or the relay agent. All other terminals just ignores that request. See, the message packet contains the hardware identifier. That is, I am having a physical address. That is a MAC address. Then a specific source port, a destination address 255.255.255.255, because the client does not know exact IP address of the DHCP server. So it can optionally specify the IP address it wants to lease and its duration. And the packet will have a transaction ID, say 00811. That is the typical transaction ID. The DHCP relay agent is nothing but a router that is running the relay agent. The DHCP relay agent will forward the message received from the green terminal to the DHCP server that is connected to the relay agent. The DHCP server, I have told you, the DHCP relay agent, I have told you, is configured with an internal IP address as well as the IP address of the DHCP server range. That is 179.100.1.255. That's why this can communicate this DHCP relay agent can communicate with DHCP server. This DHCP server will accept now the message from the relay agent. Along with the IP address, the DHCP server also sends the configuration information such as what is the default gateway, what is the subnet mask, what is the class of IP address that is being used here. Anyone can turn on the mic and tell me. What is the class of IP address that is being used here? Class A. Is it class A? No, it starts with 0.0.0.0 up to 127.0.0 or 127.255.255.255. From 127 to 162. What is the range? You have to know the ranges of class A, class B, class C, class D and class E. Majoritarily we are utilizing class A, class B and class C type of IP address configurations for the internal terminals. So the DHCP server have a pool of addresses that can be leased out for a certain time duration to the various hosts on demand. Now this DHCP server is communicating from the server side. The packet contains the configuration information for each host that is stored in a table that is indexed by some form of unique host identifier. The message packet contains the DHCP server's IP address, the client's hardware identifier, that is the MAC address of the client, the same transaction ID. So for the transaction ID, if this particular transaction ID is verified, the IP address is allocated to the client. The relay agent returns the information back to the requesting computer. Whenever the relay agent relays the information, the IP address allocated by the DHCP server is allocated to the green terminal. That is also in the same range. That is also in the same range of class B type of IP addresses which are previously allocated to red, blue and yellow terminal. See here 162.103.1.103. This is the IP address within this particular range, so that this particular terminal now can communicate with the internal terminals as well as with the external terminal. Internal terminal as well as the external terminal. I think this must clear your concept how actually the IP address is obtained from the DHCP server. Again, I will play this. See here, the green terminal does not have the IP address. The green terminal now what if the DHCP server is not at all available? If the DHCP server is not at all available, then all these terminals must allocate themselves the IP address manually in the specified range only, that is in this particular range only, because it's the specific internal IP address that is being allocated for the local area network. And then this should couple with, or this should map with a public domain IP address, that is 179.100.1.254. Then only the internal network will be able to communicate, and then all these terminals will have a public domain IP address, which is in the range supported by the internet service providers. I will show you again the practical example, the configuration of my Wi-Fi router. Okay, I am sharing my Chrome browser, which I utilize to manage the Wi-Fi router. I have a TP-Link Wi-Fi router which provides the wired connectivity as well as the wireless connectivity for all my internal networks, that is my mobile, my laptop, my desktop, the mobile of all other family members, the laptops of all other family members. Everyone is connected to the internet with the help of this layer 3 switch, layer 3 router, which acts as a switch, which acts as a router, which also provides the dynamic host configuration protocols server facility, so that all the terminals in my network will get an IP address automatically. Now this particular browser, only authenticated users can use or can configure. Now see here, there are two different configurations, wired clients and wireless client. There are 4 wired clients at present which are connected and 4 wireless clients. For wireless clients, typically the mobiles, which are connected, 4 wired clients and 4 wireless clients. There is a desktop, there are laptops, 2 laptops, different laptops are connected, and one Wi-Fi router to which a wired connectivity is provided to extend the communication. Here the important things I want to show you is the network mode. See here the network mode for a local area network. The IP address that is being allocated to my Wi-Fi router is 192.168.0.1. See here, it's the class C type of IP address which is allocated to my Wi-Fi router. Since it's a class C type of, the subnet mask that is provided is 255.255.255.0. I can manually allocate class B type of IP address in the range 172.16.0.1. But then I have to use the subnet mask 255.255.0.0. Remember this. If I am utilizing a IP address in the range of class A, say 10.1.1.1, then I have to use the subnet mask 255.255.255.0.0. So it will be a subnet mask. Yesterday we have seen what we can find out the startup address by ending with the subnet mask. We can find out the end address by ORing and inverting the subnet mask and adding 1. So starting and ending addresses can be found out with the help of simple digital calculations. Here see this DHCP server on. This DHCP server that is being configured for my terminal. I will show you the settings of that DHCP server. See here, the DHCP server is enabled. It's enabled. If this DHCP server is not enabled, I have to provide manually the IP addresses to all the devices within my local area network. Also that too in a single range. It's always difficult, and that's why dynamic host configuration protocol server helps in automatically allocating. See here, the least time that I have allocated for it's my internal network. I trust all the devices that are available in the internal network. So I provide a maximum value, that is 2880, but the default value is just 2 hours. So the IP address, if it's leased for one of my mobile or one of my laptop, if I select this 120, it will be only for 2 hours. It will be only for 2 hours. And I am selecting this particular range. See, this is the IP address that is being allocated to my router, to my layer 3 device, The IP address that can be allocated for all my internal network will start from .10 to .240, .249. So any IP address will be allocated by this DHCP server as soon as that terminal gets connected to this DHCP server. The number of clients, see now the number of clients that are connected, all will be allocated the range starting from 192.168.0.10 to 192.168.0.255. Any IP address. These are all my various terminals. See, this particular Abhishek has a laptop which has a wired connectivity as well as which has a wireless connectivity. Wired as well as wireless connectivity. That's why for one particular host, these are the 2 MAC addresses. Both the MAC addresses will be allocated separate IP address. If the wired connectivity is done by this particular laptop, then it will have one particular IP address. If it's a wireless connectivity, then it will have another IP address. So these are the IP addresses which are allocated These are the IP addresses which are allocated. See here, this terminal AR Karwankar. It again has the wireless adapter as well as the wired adapter. So for the wireless adapter, one IP address is allocated. For wireless adapter, one another IP address is allocated. These are the two IP addresses which are allocated to this desktop computer. To this particular desktop computer, two different IP addresses, internal IP addresses are allocated dynamically by using the DHCP server. Here, in the previous practical, I have shown you the configuration of my web server. So for 0.17 as well as for 0.73. Both will be redirected to my single HTTP server which I have hosted here. So these are the two IP addresses dynamically allocated by my Wi-Fi router to a single terminal. So if I have 4 laptops, I can connect a wired Cat6 cable as well as I can connect to the Wi-Fi router by using the Wi-Fi adapter. So these two will be allocated to different IP addresses. These two different IP addresses can be bridged to increase the speed of connectivity. That's how the DHCP server is allocating. Here I have defined dot 10 to dot 249. So it allocates any address in between. If I restrict this particular 10 to say 35 and if I save it and if I refresh it, since this initial leasing is only, it's already allocated, so I have to wait for almost 48 hours. Okay, we'll try this. Now this is allocated, so it's denying me to change the allocated IP addresses. Those will be changed automatically. After the leased time is over. So almost all devices are allocated. That's why I am not able to change the IP address in this particular specified range. If I restart my router, then internet connectivity of all the devices will be disconnected and all those devices will be allocated this new IP address in the range 10.35, 0.10 to 0.35. Next time, in the next lecture, I will again show you this change in the IP address. If you can take a screenshot of this and check whether the IP address is allocated differently by selecting a different range of IP addresses or not. Almost 25 terminals are there, so I will increase this to 100. And after every 2 minutes, the IP address will be different. Again, I will be changing this to 120. If I reboot, my connectivity for this particular lecture will be also disconnected. Then again, I have to restart the event, the WebEx event. That will take almost again a lot of time. So at present, just you can get the practical information that the DHCP server is allocating. Okay, I will at the same time show you the IP address that can be manually allocated to the Ethernet card. For that, I have to stop sharing the router. share the screen. See the DHCP server 192.168.0.1. This is the IP address of DHCP server. IP address that is being allocated to this terminal is 192.168.0.17 for one Intel gigabit network connection, which is a wired connection, which is providing me 1 gigabits per second. 1 gigabits per second, which is allocated this particular 192.168.0.17 as the IP address. At the same time, if you see the wireless properties, I can, instead of 17, I will change the IP address. This is the Ethernet terminal that is connected. If I check for details, 0.17 is the IP address. 192.168.0.17 is the IP address that is being allocated to this terminal. Now I can change the IP address. Since I know the range of IP addresses, see here, obtain an IP address automatically. Due to this particular terminal, when connected to the router, is allocated an IP address. But if I choose, say, one IP address 192.168.0.75, see the subnet mask, since it's a class C type of IP address configuration, the subnet mask will be 255.255.255.0. The default gateway will be 192.168.0.1. That will be the default gateway. That is my IP address of the router. Then preferred DNS server, if I know some public domain DNS servers, I can utilize those, or I can directly utilize the DNS server which is the default gateway, my default gateway, which can take the communication with the internet service provider. So now I am allocating 0.75. This is a manual allocation of IP address. This is a manual allocation of IP address. IP address I have allocated, automatically that IP address will be 192.168.0.75, will be properly redirected. Here 0.75 is the manual IP. Previously it was 17, and another IP address that was, now you can see that in the configuration 192.168.0.1. Here for my terminal, this is the IP address. IP address which is manually allocated, to my terminal. So this IP address is mapped with the MAC address, and this IP MAC combination is nothing but the network address translation or a NAT table that is maintained by layer 3 devices. That is maintained by layer 3 devices. The layer 3 devices, typically layer 3 switches or the routers or the concentrators or the devices that are utilized by the service providers, which may have a different type of topology. I think this particular configuration, if there are any difficulties, you can shoot your questions. Any type of difficulty you can ask. Just turn on your mic. Are there any difficulties? Are there any difficulties? Any doubt in understanding the concept of dynamic host configuration protocol, DHCP, which allocates, that's what yesterday we have seen in the PowerPoint presentation. The internal IP addresses, the external IP addresses, internet service provider allocates the IP addresses to the group of or a range of IP addresses. Whatever I have shown are the internal IP addresses. My IP address that is being allocated by my service provider to this terminal is again a different. You can check that by using what is my IP.com. My public IP version is 103.204.38.17. That is the public domain IP address. 192.168.0.1 to 0.255 will be the IP addresses which are allocated to me, by my Wi-Fi router. But all terminals will communicate with the external network with the support of all this. So for all my terminals, this will be my public version IP address. This will be my public IP address. Are you getting this? This is the public domain IP address. This is the public domain IP address. Is DHCP enabled only when we extend the router? If another router is connected, there will be only one DHCP server in the entire network. Two DHCP servers should not be there. Otherwise, it will create a conflict of allocation of the IP addresses. That's why in a network, there will be only one DHCP server. Whenever you have a DHCP server and if manually allocation, say for it's okay for 10 terminals, 15 terminals, but if you have 250 terminals or like that in case of our entire campus, there are almost 700 to 1000 terminals including the mobile devices. It's very difficult to manually allocate the IP address for all those devices, and that's why a DHCP server is always utilized in the network to allocate the IP addresses. DHCP is not at all just for enabled when we want to extend the router. There will be only one, remember this, there will be only one DHCP server. in the entire internal network. Whenever I will show you the firewall cyber roam configuration in the coming lectures, I will show you that also. That will clear your concept about the internal IP addresses, the filters that are supported by firewall, and the IP addresses that are manually allocated, manual public IP addresses which are utilized by the firewall. The firewall, all of you know, we have a cyber roam that all our request passes through this firewall. If firewall permits, then only you are connected to the external network. If firewall denies the permission, you are not at all connected to the external network. If there are any doubts, you can ask or just mark your attendance by saying no sir, yes sir, yes, I am available for any sort of doubt, any doubt. I can take any question on these configurations. We'll wait for 2 minutes, then I will disconnect. So give your attendance.